the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagavan Baba, and Om Sai Ram to all the viewers, and Om Sai Ram to Auntie Bowie. This is the fourth and final episode of the Dare to Be Divine series for this Women's Month in collaboration with the Ladies Wing of the Sri Sathya Sai Global Council, South Africa. So today in conversation with me is somebody that I fondly know as Auntie Bowie. So Auntie Bowie, welcome to this episode. So we're going to start this episode off. Let's get everybody to know who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself. You can start with your name, even though I said it. You can start with your name and then tell us a little bit about yourself.
Om Sai Ram. Auntie Bowie is a fun name, so that's fine. But the name is Manimegle. Manimegle Pillay. Yeah. A little bit about myself. I'm still trying to find out who I am.
Okay.
With Bhagwan's grace, at least that quest will be answered at some point in this journey. Grateful to Bhagwan because I understand now that we choose the families in which we born, and a lot of our family are Sai oriented, so that for me is a boon.
Okay. So what do you do for a living? You can tell me from the start, like what did you start off with and now?
Oh, career-wise.
Career-wise, yes.
Oh, I started off studying nursing at the R.K. Khan Hospital, and then went on to do lectureship, nurse education first, and then health sciences. And then I went up to public servant in terms of provincial office in Maritzburg, Department of Health. I remained a public servant for 45 years, and I've recently retired. It's my 5th month into retirement.
Oh wow.
So I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah.
That's really nice. So in terms of the Sri Sathya Sai organization, can you tell us how you served in the organization?
Again, I'm grateful to Bhagwan for the opportunity because I was initiated in my teens into the organization. So my paternal uncle initiated us to Sathya Sai, and Dr. Kupan, so I acknowledge that that path was changed. We come from a fairly spiritual family, but the teachings drew me to Bhagwan. And I think as a teenager, for me, that was very important because when you're seeking this kind of quest, that came at the right time. Okay. So growing up in the Sai organization, it was quite a big culture shock starting nursing in Chatsworth. And holding on to Bhagwan, his value system, and basically his injunctions saw me through that part of my career. So I'm very grateful to Bhagwan for that. Huge opportunity for my beginning the journey of transformation.
So I know you said you're in your 5th month of retirement, and clearly it's showing you looking very happy. But for the past years that you have been working, and you said that you are in the provincial office, how is it that you were able to adapt, I'll let you call it in inverted commas, the Sai life or the Dharmic way of doing things at your workplace? How were you able to adapt that or bring that to your work?
So I want to start just before the actual provincial work at the provincial office. My interactions in the Sai organization was a huge learning curve. Besides serving in several positions in the organization, I think what was an opportunity for transformation was that there's no difference. If you take work as worship, all Bhagwan's fundamental values start to emulate in your work situation. It's been quite a challenge, several positions that I held at our head office. But I'm grateful again because I saw those as learning opportunities. It was in times, I'm not sure how they grade sandpaper, but you know the sandpapering that you have to go through? But I started to realize very early in my career that if we were to listen to Bhagwan and follow his injunctions with discipline, then he takes care of everything. So, career-wise, I've had quite a few learning curves, and hopefully it's helped in the future generations to come. Because I think part of my role in the Department of Health was development, human resources, and then I served in terms of a program manager, we did management development.
So that now that you mentioned about younger women, so what would, and because you served in the organization, so what would be your advice to the younger women in our organization in terms of taking on roles of leadership? What would be your advice to them, as in, to grab it? Because, Swami's put so much emphasis on young women and in terms of leadership and saying that we are equal to men, if not better, and we can also do what is required of us at leadership positions. So what would be your advice for the younger generation in terms of that?
I think everything's a choice. Everything in life's a choice. As subtle as you choose how to breathe. When you're angry or anxious, your breath is like pacing around. But when you're calm, and that's when decisions can be made, you make the choice in that moment. Practicing Bhagwan's 9-point code of conduct is fundamental. Any one of those, whichever suits you as a young person, I think that's the beginning. And if you ground yourself in Bhagwan's teachings and values, that starts to open up those opportunities. I think I want to make the distinction as well between prayer and meditation. So a lot of us feel that if we pray, or I pray to Swami, he's not answering my prayers. Prayer is speaking to God, whereas meditation is listening to God. Now that distinction comes with transformation. Okay? The other thing I'd like to advise our young women, not only in the organization, but in general, is that if you start becoming focused on the present, one says it nicely, the past is past. Present is a gift, and the future takes care of itself. He takes care of it. But if you have that total understanding, right, to give up that jealousy, the competition, and whatever else rides you, focus on being who you are. That's the point of leadership. Being, and then you start to observe the changes. And there's that self-inquiry which comes through any one of the sadhanas you choose. That then starts to open up these opportunities, not just to become a leader, but just to be a good person. And starting to interact with us sisters in the organization and brothers, because Bhagwan doesn't make that distinction, starts to bring out these values are there, they're inherent in us. You don't imbibe values, you don't instill values, but you can allow them to blossom. Any one of those human values. I just want to share with you that, especially so because you asked the question of my work situation, and to hold on to integrity, for example. In this context of our current lifestyle, is not easy. But if you firmly believe in it, your integrity is intact. And therefore you will always fall back, no matter how challenging the noises out there, or the complexities with which you have to manage. You always refer to that internal reference standard, which is your fundamental value. And that's Dharma.
So it's a nice point that you mentioned, to be. So that's what Swami says, the Mahavakya of leadership is to be, to do, to see, and then to tell. That was a nice point that you mentioned, that yes, that's the starting point, to be, and then to do, and see, and tell. So When you start your morning, what's your cuppa? What do you have? What keeps you going?
A good strong cup of 5 Roses tea.
5 Roses
No
tea.
milk, no sugar.
No milk, no sugar. Okay.
Used to be rooibos when I was working, but I've transitioned now. Or sometimes green tea. But a good cup of 5 Roses is what does it for me.
Alright. So do you love to cook? Is that something that you like to do?
Yes.
So what is the budget that you sing?
Depends on
The day.
not the day only, the time and what I'm cooking.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just so hungry.
Okay.
Bhajans is when I'm in that mood of,
Okay. Alright. So how in your day, how do you remain connected to Swami? What is the thing that you do or the thing that you look up to? What is it that you do to remain connected to Swami? Because sometimes in our day-to-day and our mundane activities, it's easy, to be so focused on what we're doing that we forget. I know work is worship, but we sometimes, when we're having a little bit of a difficult day, we tend to forget Swami. But so how do you keep yourself connected? What is it that keeps you connected?
when I spoke about being present and being, part of it is to become so self-aware that you can't forget Swami, because he's the doer. It's part of your transformation when you get to that stage. Practical example, how do I connect to Swami? When you're in a hectic meeting and the tempers are flying and across the boardroom table and everybody is like in a negative mode, you can change that vibration just by breathing so humbly into the meeting. And that is to experience. Practice.
Experience. That's very hard.
The more and more you practice it, the effortless it becomes. And it really works. Because you change not just the tone of the meeting, but it becomes productive. And then you realize that that was an opportunity, one, that gave you, to remember you. Because I could have got quite caught up
In the meeting.
in that, and there were times when you do get caught up in it. You're just becoming more and more aware of the present. So it will change. It will change in terms of your circumstances, and especially now with our lifestyles. I think we've got to keep grounded in which value you want to emulate. The choice is yours.
The choice is ours. Okay, sure. So, who has been your role model or inspiration for life?
I think various stages in my life, different roles in my life. My personal life has been my paternal grandmother, who taught me the inner significance of meditation. Then I'm very grateful. And then of course Bhagwan came into our lives at the time when we were, that teenage hormonal changes that you go through.
Definitely.
I'm not talking about the physical changes, the emotional and the psychological, which is so important for us to understand in our transformation process, because we're going to when we're transforming on this journey, it should be integral, all levels. My mom, I lived in an extended family when I was growing up, and she was the epitome of equality. Equality in action, where I learned that was fundamental to me when I was growing up. That's personal life. I have 2 aunts who I'm grateful to as well, who brought out the educator in me. Other role models, my professional life, I had our Deputy Director General, Mrs. Kuya, who I think had shifted beyond this racism that we had to not work only with, but to transform. Because when I left the department, as the only Indian in the component that I worked in. And that interaction with Mrs. Kruya kept me very grounded to say that this is not about the self. I learned that selflessness from the one early on in the career. And so she was quite instrumental in bringing that out in me.
A lot has been said about, gender-based violence, right? It has become a pandemic. Also, another thing that's a pandemic, and we're going to discuss it today, is mental awareness or mental health. That's also another topic that's really escalating, I think, amongst young and older individuals as well. So, what are your views on the mental health, and how is it that, sometimes I feel like as Sai devotees, we're so blessed to have the tools that Swami has given us to be able to withstand the pressures or the stresses and be able to have that mental health and awareness. Not so many people are fortunate to have that. But what are your views on this mental health awareness or mental health in general?
So I think before we even go to mental health, it's the physical health, because we're made up of several aspects in terms of our personalities. And as I said earlier on, we choose the families to whom we are born. And that's very important because mental health starts at that level, right? At formative years, from birth all the way through about 9, 10-year-old, it's your mom, your interaction with your mom, your parents, and the values they're allowed to express there. So family values are very important. A lot of the research is showing now that gender-based violence is actually based in that area, not just of mental, but emotional health. Okay? So it's not about IQ anymore. It's not IQ as in the mental capacity. It's not about EQ anymore. That's the emotional capacity. But also now we're starting to learn about the SQ, spiritual. Yeah? So I think, and we've got, as you said, the tools. But what's important is the listening. It's not about the Mahavakya, because Swami has very clearly said that it's when you listen to that inner voice. Our communication basically needs to change. Okay? So when you're in touch with yourself, in terms of your self-inquiry, self-reflection, you start to realize very early when you're imbalanced. Right? And that then becomes part of your mental health awareness. So your self-awareness is not just about interaction with others, it starts with interacting with yourself. Right? Let me give you a practical example.
Yes.
Sometimes you set very high standards and you get frustrated.
Yes, I think that's a lot of us.
Yeah. Or you haven't met someone's expectations.
Yeah.
Coming back to the practical, it's okay to say no. Right? But understand before you make that decision to say no, is it pure in thought? Is it pure in action? Yeah? And when you can make that distinction between yes or no, then you can answer. A lot of us, when we get caught up in this mental state that we so-called, he's mental. He's not mental. We all are mental. Yeah? But are we in balance?
Or imbalance.
Yeah, or in balance. And so I think that's where it starts. How is it related then to violence? Because we see ourselves as separate. I also want to add that it's not only female when we talk gender-based violence. The violence against men are also increasing. So to practice this fundamental value of equality, we just go to the basics of understanding ourselves first of all. And that self-inquiry, we are made up of male and female, Shiva Shakti.
Yes.
Yeah. And how you keep that in balance. Yeah. So that's the distinction. Mental health is becoming more and more prominent now in terms of ill health, and it needs to be addressed. Just by listening, as I said, to someone else and not giving your opinion, listening in the present and true listening. In other words, pick up the emotions. You know, vibration is very important. And once you start to purify yourself with any of the sadhana, you're able to then assess that. Is she in a good space? Right? I can pick up she's having hassles. Okay? What am I picking up? Her vibration. Yeah? And that kind of just support can prevent a whole range of escalating emotions. So we're very integrated. If you understand that part of our psyche, it's quite interesting to understand and learn that that's part of what we need to be sharing. Nature's so wonderful that it gives you a trigger before it gets to that stage when it becomes violent. And if we're so in tune with ourselves, we can control that. That's what Swami speaks about, self-control. One of his sayings I'm very fond of, the refinement of an individual is measured by self-control. Whichever aspect you're in. So part of it is your thoughts. And in that deep meditation, you hear him. Even now, if we're in tune with him, he's listening. Don't go.
So, thank you so much, Auntie Bowie, for taking your time out today to be with us here and share and impart your wisdom on us. So just to end off the series, Swami says it's the call to women, and I think this is the perfect way to end this series. He says, embodiments of love. Mistakes may sometimes be committed in the organization. See that they do not recur. People today have similar experiences over and over again, but their minds remain untouched. Every experience should bring about a change. For years, you listened to Swami's discourses, but how many have changed? How many have developed good qualities? Swami says, not many, I think. So he says this is the call to women. Develop pure thoughts wherever you may be. Only then you visit to Prashanti Nilayam at a great expense would have served the purpose. And now that our pilgrimage is coming up, what a saying to just affirm. So Swami says, Swami calls on them to change themselves and also to help change their men and children. They should develop the qualities of sympathy, compassion, love, and sacrifice. Bhagavan desires that you should take up the reins of leadership and bring peace and prosperity to the nation by leading ideal lives. So this discourse was given in 19th November 1995 at the Purna Chandra Auditorium. So thank you so much for being a part of our Women's Month and inspiring all our women out there. Thank you so much. And thank you to Swami for this wonderful opportunity that we have given here today.
Cheers.
Sai Ram.